set, I've got my mic, I've got my clicker, it's all good, so that's me. This is what I do, work around unconscious bias, and I'm going to show you some of the work that I take to my clients over the next 20 minutes or so. I'm going to talk fairly fast, but I'll hang around afterwards if anybody wants to talk to me about anything else. My clicker's not working. Right, do you see anything in this image? If you do, just call it out, please. Okay, good. This is really lovely. Let's try again. Can you see anything? Call it out. A dog. A dog. Who sees a dog? Raise your hands if you see a dog, and raise them if you can. Oh, that's good. Okay, who can't see a dog? Could you help them, please? Who saw a tree? That's weird. Okay. Where is the dog, please? Tell me where it is. In the middle. Yeah, what's it doing? It's drinking. Can you see it now? Those of you who couldn't see it before, can you see it now? Yeah, that's what I want to hear. That's what I'm interested in. Not those of you who saw it first of all, but those of you who see it now that other people have told you about it. Because that's the concept, I think, that underpins the whole idea of unconscious bias. The fact that you can look at something, not see anything, and then somebody else tells you that it's there, and then you see it. That happens with people too, doesn't it? Okay, this is right. This happens with people too, doesn't it? Sometimes someone will say to you, have you noticed everyone who works in that department is like that? And you might say, no, I hadn't noticed that at all. And they'll say, yes, they are, you look. And so you do. And over a little time you go, my goodness, you're right. They are all like that. That's the concept of unconscious bias, that other people make us see things. If the dog thing didn't work for you, don't worry, I'm not putting that image back anymore. I will be talking about gender equality. And I hope you forgive me if I also talk about race and a few other issues as well, because I'm a black woman, right? Those things are my favourites. So, unconscious biases then are rapid, automatic, pervasive. We all have them. And we don't always know which ones we've got. That's the difficult bit. But the even more difficult bit is that we don't have to believe a stereotype for it to affect us. I was told that by a man called Dr. Pete Jones, who's our UK lead on unconscious bias. He has the testing site that's UK based. And he illustrated that point to me by telling me a story. I'd heard it before, but I let him finish because that's polite, isn't it? Someone's telling me a story. And it was a really good example. I'd almost forgotten it, but it was a really good example. So now I'm going to tell you that story as well to illustrate that point to you. And if you've heard it before, I hope you'll let me finish too. So, the story is about a father and son who were in a car. And I think they decided to spend quality time together. The father's driving, and I think he's showing off to his son. Can you picture this? The windows are down, he has one hand on the wheel, the rock music is coming out of the radio, and he is seriously going for it. Driving too fast. Irresponsible for a father driving his son, but he does. And before long, there's a terrible accident. It's awful. The father's killed outright, the car is written off, and the son is really badly injured. He needs life-saving surgery. So here he is, prepped for surgery on the operating theatre table. The surgeon rushes in and takes one look at the boy and says, I can't operate on this boy. It's my son. The first time I heard that, I thought I got it straight away. I said, gay dads. And then I thought, oh, perhaps it's his stepfather. And then I thought, it's a priest. The surgeon is a priest. That's why he said my son. Yeah. It took me nearly half a minute to work out that the surgeon was the boy's mother, not his father. That noise is upsetting. You have no business falling for this. You're in an unconscious bias session. You should be ready for that sort of thing, shouldn't you? I bring this to you just to show you that we all have them, right? Pete Jones says we don't know which stereotypes we've got, which unconscious biases we've got, and we don't have to believe a stereotype for it to affect us. Because if I'd said to you, are you sexist? You'd have said, no, look where I am. If I'd said, when you think medic, do you think male? You'd have said, no, I know that women can be doctors, but look what our unconscious bias is too. This is Masri Banerjee. She wrote a very accessible book called Blind Spot Around Unconscious Bias. She says this, and I think she's right, that even if we're trying really hard not to be biased, it's very difficult if we're bombarded with images and messages all of the time. And those associations that we make may affect us at work, which is why I take this work on unconscious bias anywhere where anybody will let me in a room, basically. So recently, the Oscars were on, so someone kindly let me in a room and gave me a microphone. And just to illustrate the point I wanted to make, I picked up my phone and I opened the Yahoo search engine. And keeping with the theme of Oscars, I wrote in the word director and hit search and images. I got pictures of 20 chairs, 10 men, 4 clapperboards, and a dog before I got a cartoon picture of a woman as a result of my search. We have unconscious biases, and it's not our fault, because everything that we do pushes us in a certain direction. So what I want to do with you over the next few minutes is show you exactly how these things work. I want to show you a sort of technical approach, and then get you, if you like, the sort of in vitro approach, and then I'm going to show you sort of the real life kind, the in vivo approach. Here's the technical to start off with. Our biases make it difficult for us to link things that we don't normally think of as going together. And if you've done any psychology, you'll have seen this before, the Stroop effect. And if I said to you, please call out the colours of the letters of the list on the left, you'd be able to do that quite quickly and easily, wouldn't you? Much more quickly than if I said call out the colours of the letters of the list on the right. And if I asked you why you were going so slowly and why you were stumbling and making mistakes, you'd say, well, they don't match. On that side, the word and the colour go together, and on that side, they don't. The Stroop effect slows you down, stumbles, makes you stumble, makes you make mistakes. And that's what happens in real life. This is a very recent one, just a few weeks ago. One of our MPs, black woman Dawn, who's been an MP for 8 years, got into a lift at the Houses of Parliament, and another MP's Stroop effect got him into real trouble, because his things, in terms of his mind, what matched was, black woman must be a cleaner. So he said, this lift isn't really for cleaners, you know. His Stroop effect made him stumble and made him make mistakes. That's a really big one. But sometimes they're little, aren't they? And people don't catch us when we're matching things like that. So, do these things matter? Yes, they do. Because people's associations, their implicit associations or unconscious biases, can actually affect their practice. This is from a little while ago, but it's very good. A group of people in Sweden undertook some research, got a group of people who were about to recruit, and asked them to do an implicit association test on the basis, very current, of Arab Muslim sounding names. And they found that those people who had a negative implicit association were less likely to shortlist people who then had Arab Muslim sounding names. See what I mean about these things affect us? Interestingly, in later work, other people have shown that if you get people to do an implicit association test before they shortlist, they're less likely to exhibit that kind of tendency. You can imagine why, can't you? I know what I'd be like if I had my test results that showed me I had a strong negative implicit association against Arab Muslim sounding names. And then someone said, that's your test result, go ahead and recruit. I would be so careful, wouldn't you? As I went through the list, as I came across a form that said Mohammed, I'd be like, okay, I must check and double check and make sure that my implicit association is not showing. So that's how we begin to undo some of our unconscious biases, or at least limit the impact, is by bringing them from our subconscious into our conscious. And implicit association tests can help with that. So you can go to Project Implicit and go and do myriad of tests. I would say leave plenty of time and be settled and quiet so you're not interrupted, you need a bit of space. I'd also say this, if you're going to do a test, don't tell anybody you're doing it, because then if the results shock you, you need never mention it again. Let me ask you this, these two tables, are they the same size and shape? Let's start with shape. Are they the same shape? Not the same shape, I'm seeing heads shaking over there. What about this side? Not the same shape? Are they the same size? Yes? Let me ask you one more way. If I picked up one and turned it over and just sat it on top of the other one, would it fit exactly? No. That sounds very definite. Yes, who said yes in a very confident sounding way? Have you seen it before, or are you just sure? You should be thinking, well, why is she asking? If she's asking, it must fit. They're the same size, they're the same shape, and if I could cut one out and put it on top of the other, 2 within a millimetre, it would fit on top. Bizarre, isn't it? Okay, this is one of the other ways in which our implicit associations, our unconscious biases affect us. They stop us seeing things as they really are. Like I said, this is the technical example. For a long time, I called this an optical illusion. But actually, I was told that it's more accurately described as a cognitive illusion. That our minds are used to seeing our 3-dimensional world portrayed to us in 2-dimensional images. We see photographs, we don't think people are flat, do we? We know that they are 3-dimensional, so we interpret what we see. And that's what we're doing there, except with those tables, they really are flat. But our mind is interpreting them, giving us a new perspective, the wrong perspective. And that's what we do with people. We take a look, we interpret them according to what we know, and we use our own perspective. Not always the most accurate perspective. Have you seen this one before? We like this, don't we? Taking it away now. The most common answer I get is, it's a man with his arms around a woman, I can't tell if he's hugging her or strangling her. The next most common answer I get is, I saw some hairy arms, it's probably 2 men. The least most common answer I get, but. It's the, oh, I love the familiar association there. It's the daughter. I don't know whether they're father or mother, but I don't know if it's a, let me go back, let you see it properly. It is indeed a man, a woman with her arms. Yes, she is hugging him, indeed. But so many people, and I won't ask you to put your hand up. Oh, you're groaning, so I can tell how many of you it caught. So many people see it that way. Ah, right. So this time, instead of talking to the neuroscientists who explained to me about the tables, I was talking to the psychologists who explained to me why so many people see this the wrong way around. And it's because we default to what we know. Most of the time, if we see a couple, if there's an active role, it'll be the man with his arms around a woman, right? Most times. And so when we see an image like that, we think, oh, it'll be the man with his arms around a woman. But it isn't. We have to learn that we can't always, even if something looks really obvious and plain to our face, we can't always assume that what we see in front of us is exactly as it is. Because we don't see things as they are. We see things, I think, as we are. And if we recognise that we all put our own perspective, we see the world firmly through a lens that is us, then we can begin to see where our unconscious biases might begin to affect us. I think it's that phenomenon that leads to this kind of problem. The fact that still, even though we're making progress, we have underrepresentation of women at senior levels in organisations. Because I think people's assumptions, their unconscious biases, affect things like their recruitment, their selection, their appraisal, and so on. The answer, even if you don't want to do the work about changing your biases, the answer is to put some mechanisms in place to stop your biases having an impact on your behaviour. So measure everything. How many times have you heard someone say, he looks like a good fit for that role? Or I can't see her fitting in here. Have you heard those sorts of things? Those people need to not do that. They need to measure and not rely on their perception of a fit. So I've shown you how our biases affect the way we see things. Now, Professor Lawrence Rosenblum's going to show you how our biases affect the way we hear things. I hope we've got enough sound on this one for you to... Can somebody check that, because it's not playing at the moment and it's supposed to be playing? Play that, right? That's it. Thanks.
At any one moment, we are being bombarded by sensory information. Our brains do a remarkable job of making sense of it all. It seems easy enough to separate the sounds we hear from the sights we see. But there is one illusion that reveals this isn't always the case. Have a look at this. What do you hear? when we change the picture.
Ba, 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 ba.
And yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing ba with a B.
Ba, ba, ba,
It's an illusion known as the McGurk effect.
ba,
Take another look.
ba,
Concentrate first on the right of the screen.
ba,
Now to the left of the screen.
ba.
The illusion occurs because what you are seeing clashes with what you are hearing.
In the illusion, what we see overrides what we hear. So the mouth movements we see as we look at a face can actually influence what we believe we're hearing. If we close our eyes, we actually hear the sound as it is. If we open our eyes, we actually see how the mouth movements can influence what we're hearing.
How weird is that? Did it work for you? Can you see what the practical application might be? Can you imagine that sometimes someone might be standing in front of you and they just don't look like the sort of person who'd give you a decent answer? Or maybe they look like the sort of person who'd give you an excellent answer. And how the McGurk effect might kick in and distort what you actually hear. So, sometimes when we see people as we are, we can't always hear accurately what they say. So, here's another place where you put an intervention in. We have to work in panels, take notes, get several opinions on something just to check that we are absolutely accurate, basing our decisions on fact where we can. So now I've made it sound like implicit associations are a bit of a nuisance and we should all be trying really hard to get rid of them. But I said that I'd spend a bit of time talking about what they are and where they come from. So we talked about what they are. They come from a long way back, from when early man and early woman first met a threat. They didn't have time to rationalise it, did they? Can you imagine that conversation? What's that? It's a mammoth. Are they dangerous? Are we all right here? Are they vegetarian? We've got time for that. You have to make a quick decision. So, obviously, a little bit of our brain helps us do that. And one of the functions of this thing called the amygdala is to signal fear throughout the body. And it's great, because then all kinds of physiological changes take place. We go into the freeze, flight or fight mode, and then early man and early woman was ready to deal, weren't they, with the big threat, the mammoth. They could run away from the mammoth or hide from the mammoth or try and get a few friends together and kill it. That all works. And that's why we managed to be here. But there's no more mammoths, right? But we still have amygdalas. We can still default to freeze, flight or fight, can't we? What are your modern day mammoths? What sort of things throw you into freeze, flight or fight today? Yeah, someone said ISIS. That will do it. Even, you don't think it's big as that. A bag will do it. I can turn a bag into a mammoth. I can go, is that your bag? No. Is that your bag? No? Whose bag is... That's a mammoth now, isn't it? We're all going to want to run away, for sure. People can become mammoths. Your boss can be a mammoth. Present company accepted, of course. And if you're thinking, no, I like my boss, let me put it this way. What if your boss, with a straight face, came to you and said, have you got a minute? Can I just ask you to come? Yeah? Mammoth now. And actually, your subordinates can be a mammoth too. People become mammoths through no fault of their own. I see it all the time. People come to me and say, Femi, how can I cope with this particular member of staff? And I know it's that they've become a mammoth to them because they're not used to them. They are a different culture, different background, and they're frightened of dealing with them. And unlike early man, they can't kill them. It looks bad. HR tend to make a nuisance about it. So they avoid them, they isolate them, they make inappropriate comments, you come across that, things come out of your mouth that you weren't expecting because you're uncomfortable with this person. Our unconscious biases have those effects on us. And then when we're in that state, we default, don't we, to the very largest part of our thinking space, our subconscious. And that's where our implicit associations and our unconscious biases lie. And if you want to know the answer of how to deal with that, the answer is free up some space in the little bit of conscious thinking space you've got, possibly only 5%. Do it by looking after yourself, getting rid of too many deadlines, having something to eat so you haven't got too much low blood sugar, And don't be holding anything cold, because all sorts of research shows us that if you hold something cold, you're less likely to warm to someone. So it minimises your chances of resting on your unconscious bias by not grabbing a nice cold diet drink when you're in a rush. That stuff could make you sexist and racist. You don't want to be doing that sort of thing at all. I'm going to have to skip over some of my language. I think I'm slightly out of time, but I just want to show you this. The language that you use sometimes affects the way in which you see things. And this is a tiny bit of work from a woman called Lera Boroditsky. I'm just going to show you this and then I'll move on. Lera noticed that European languages, you'll know this, have a tendency to grammatically assign a gender to inanimate objects. Her theory is that the grammatically assigned gender affects the way in which we see things. Let me show you what she did. She took a picture of a bridge. She asked people to imagine a bridge. And because for some people, like German speakers, the language grammatically assigns a feminine to an object, like a bridge. When she asked them to describe the bridge, they tended to pick adjectives that were in keeping with that. But when she asked people whose language assigned a masculine tendency, a masculine quality to the object, can you guess some of the words which the Spanish people gave? Wow. They did, indeed. They came up with strong and sturdy and towering. And it's exactly the same the other way around. So our German speakers see the key as masculine because their language designated it as that. And the Spanish speakers saw the key as, look at this, intricate and golden and lovely. Yeah, the language that you use affects the way in which you see the object. I'll finish on this note.
Hi. Okay, so I'm going to just give you some actions to do, and just do the first thing that comes to mind. Show me what it looks like to run like a girl. Hair. Show me what it looks like to fight like a girl. Now throw like a girl. Aww.
Can I just check? So am I sure? Have I not got 2 more minutes? I can have 2. Okay, look, let me just say, therefore, bearing in mind that all of that is affecting us all of the time, I wouldn't want anyone to say I'm not subject to unconscious bias. I hope I've shown you that we are. If you do an implicit association test and you find that you have a bias against a particular group of people, you can try and combat it a little bit by making sure that it's not leaking in the form of micro messages. Sometimes positive things that we do or negative things that we do that make people feel included or excluded, depending on whether they're the micro iniquities, the bad ones, or the micro affirmations, the good ones. And I'm sure some of you will recognise these, will you? Somebody not letting you finish. We have a joke at home. We say to women, that was a very interesting point you made there. Good suggestion. Would a man like to make it so that we can take it seriously? It's because I think that people are radiating these little tiny micro messages. So I just want to show you some of the suggestions that I got the last time I did a focus group. If we want to make sure that we're creating environments that counter the micro messages that we're giving out the whole time, then we need to employ some of these. The only one that should be unfamiliar to you, possibly, is appreciative inquiry, giving people a chance to say things that are positive to themselves, asking questions like, what are you most proud of? What unique thing do you bring to our organisation? So they get a chance to talk about what they do well, and you get a chance to hear it. Mary Moe says that micro messages are like bacteria, like germs. She says they're tiny and you can't always see them, but if they reach critical mass, they can have a very detrimental effect on your well-being. Unconscious bias work is really positive, and there's a couple of really nice success stories I just want to show you. This is Freehills. It's a global law firm, but this is their Melbourne office. And you can see the results there. And this is my last slide. I'll show you this one. No, it's fine, I'm going. Just to show you that Google, and you can see the work they did on the net, they're very open with it. Their I.O. is their developers conference, Few Women in Tech. And by doing unconscious bias work, they managed to increase the number of women in just 12 months, the number of women doing their work. So I hope you will work positively around unconscious bias.